Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's a rather green week after last week's sort of mini bloodbath. I'm up 24%, or £61,000. So yeah, last week was down about 16%, so I'm up a little from there. And it's gold and silver sort of doing the heavy lifting. Crypto sort of doing reasonably well in the last week, sort of in the last few days, but yeah, it hasn't lifted the stocks all that much yet. So it's gold and silver sort of pushing on, and sort of semiconductor side has sort of been helping out a little. But yeah, that's where the main gain has come from. Looking at the Nasdaq, up just over 5% for the week, so that's pretty strong. And the S&P up 3.38%. I think that's one of the biggest weeks for a good while. Just looking at some of the news that I saw this week, CleanSpark adding 5 exahash, buying sort of, again, very, very small sites, 7 additional mining facilities to add just 5 exahash between the whole lot of them. They're sort of continuing on this, small and lots of sites, which I guess I would prefer the sort of Riot, um, you know, strategy of one big site or sort of a few large sites. They have started acquiring smaller sites, but obviously they have the Corsicana, 1 gigawatt site. But yeah, I just think sort of they would take more staff. You've got to have staff at every one of these small sites. Yeah, maybe you can have sort of operating SG&A costs that sort of go between all of them. But yeah, we'll have to see how this sort of works. But yeah, they anticipate closing on or before September the 25th, so that's fairly quick, and they're looking to put S21 Pros in those. And yeah, that increases the current hash rate to over 20 by over 22%. And they're energizing the Dalton, very small facility, and they've got above 23 exahash. They're installing S21 Pros in Sandersville, and that is sort of coming online as well. So with this additional 5 exahash, they now expect to achieve 37 before the end of 2024. So that is up from quite a bit up from where they were previously saying. And yeah, sort of looking quite good. Their hodl is sort of rapidly increasing as well. They sort of should be getting towards, I guess, 500 Bitcoin a month. So that's pretty good. And then following that, we did get sort of more news of this energization happening, more coming online. Recent expansions totaling 65 megawatts increased the company hash rate by 3.2 exahash. So they've now got above 26. So as I say, September results should be pretty good. They've sort of got this online, middle of the month, before the middle of the month, and October should be even better. Just looking at the semiconductor side as well, I've obviously got TSMC and Broadcom, and sort of a couple of smaller bets, but yeah, this sort of affects everyone from AMD, Nvidia, even Apple, all the rest of them. And I do like that you get a little indication before the earnings come out. So we've had August revenue from TSMC, 250 billion new Taiwan dollars, up 33% on last year. We've had sort of 44% up, 33% up. It's been sort of all over the place. They did say sort of, I think, late last year that this year was going to be slow growth to sort of maybe flat, and I don't think they've got the memo about AI spending, because this year has been sort of pretty knockout so far. And they're not really getting the same love that the others are getting. The sort of AI boom, it's obviously up, but yeah, still at sort of under 20 forward PE compared to all the rest of them. That is quite low, but they've still got the China risk, I guess. But yeah, nice looking number for August. So that's 2/3 of Q3 already done, and we essentially know that it's going to be a good quarter. Just a quick look at my REIT positions as well. I'm not really sort of focused on these because they are obviously much smaller positions now. So this is the second quarter ending June results. Obviously I'm a little bit behind, but I had sort of more important holdings to focus on, of course. But yeah, they're looking sort of, and they're obviously fairly steady. You know, you don't get a huge, drastic surprise in these results. We had the main figure that I always want to look at, AFFO, adjusted funds from operations per share as well. You don't want to look at just the total because obviously dilute, so the total goes up, but on a per share basis, that's what you want. And yeah, $2.79, that's pretty decent. You can look at sort of free cash flow growth as well, and capital expenditures. Obviously, they're American Tower still spending an awful lot. I believe they're still the biggest REIT in the world, so yeah, they do spend an awful lot. The reason for them doing reasonably well in the past sort of few weeks has been sort of rate cut expectations, sort of potential of a 0.5%, although I don't think we're going to get that next week. But even 0.25%, you know, and just Jerome last month saying that the time has come to change policy does help, because obviously this $38.96 billion is an awful lot of debt, so servicing that at a lower rate just means more cash for shareholders, because as a REIT, sort of pretty much all of the income comes to shareholders. So yeah, they got sort of next to no cash compared to that debt pile, 36 billion in net debt, and you know, leverage ratio isn't horrendous. I just, you know, would rather see maybe not quite that much debt. You'd almost rather, even if it would hurt, a bit more dilution. And the full year outlook, again, sort of growth in net income and all that, but adjusted funds from operations per share, they're looking at $10.48 to $10.72 in that range, and that's 7.4% up on last year. So pretty solid, including the dilution. That's a decent return. Just a quick look at Vici as well then, my other REITs, the only sort of two that I've kept really. Sold off the Tritax, Eurobox and Big Box. Could always buy back in the future, but they're not at the moment, and I am still considering, with these sort of rising up, possibly selling off Vici and American Tower. Depends on what gold and silver and Bitcoin do. If these are sort of rising, then there is potential to sell. But yeah, Vici sort of looking steady Eddie. You look at sort of adjusted funds for operations, it's been going up 1 cent per quarter every quarter for the last year, 54 cents to 57 cents. So not too bad. They haven't really sort of bought a huge amount from the looks of it. Still, you know, moving slightly away from gambling for golf courses, and they have the bowling alleys. So yeah, it's still obviously largely gambling, but I do like the sort of 100% occupancy rate almost permanently. Weighted average lease term of 41 years, where you know, things like Tritax Euro boxes and things are at sort of 5 years sometimes, you know, between 5 and 10 years. I think Stag Industrial was sort of between 5 and 10 years. So yeah, 41-year lease is very nice. You can see from their breakdown, you do really have to make a sort of a big acquisition to, you know, equal these sort of titans of buildings in Las Vegas. You know, they bought 38 properties for the Bolero bowling alley sort of leases, and that is 1% of revenue for 38 places, where, you know, the Venetian by itself is 1 unit, and that's 9% of revenue. So yeah, the size of these places is quite staggering. Just looking at the guidance as well, they've updated their adjusted funds for operations slightly from dilution as well, 2 million more shares than was previously forecasted, but the AFFO per share is up as well, so they're obviously good deals at a high rate, so up to between 224 and 226, very tight range. And again, it's sort of similar to American Tower, really decent growth. Still doing a bit of investment as well. You can see sort of the bowling alleys, 430 million was later last year. Again, at sort of 7.3% rates, pretty decent rental yield. And yeah, they've sort of been spending a reasonable amount. Chelsea Piers, Homefield, Kansas City, sort of moving out of Vegas again. That was 100 million, and yeah, sort of a partner growth on the Venetian was 400 million, but again, sort of 7% rates. They seem to like this 7%, 7 to 8% yield on the properties, and also 7% growth per year. So it's a decent yield. I do think I will be back to the REITs sort of at some point after gold, silver, and crypto sort of reduces in the portfolio. I'm sure I'll be back to Vici, even if I do sell at the moment. Just checking the economic news then. We had a little bit from the UK, really, quite a positive surprise. Earnings, sort of including bonus, wasn't quite up to expectations and was a little bit down, but unemployment looking sort of reasonably good. Unemployment rate down as expected, but claimants 23,000. They were expecting 95,000 for August. So that's way down from last month. And the 3-month change, your sort of non-farm payrolls equivalent, I guess. Well, total payrolls equivalent. This may not be sort of adjusted for seasonality, but they were expecting 115,000. They got 265,000, way up from previously. And yeah, this is July, so it's a little bit lagging. Same with the unemployment rate, but yeah, have to see where this goes. This isn't sort of screaming recession at the moment, unless it's suddenly going to get worse. Manufacturing production and sort of industrial production, everything wasn't quite as good, but you have to remember we're not an industrial country anymore. We're a services economy. And then US inflation was sort of pretty much in line. Core CPI for the month up slightly more than expected, but pretty much everything else was in line. So I do think that is probably leading to a 0.25% cut in next week in the FOMC. Doesn't think Jerome Powell likes to rock the boat, really. Whether they sort of think they're a bit behind the curve and do something a bit quicker soon, we don't know, but I think we'll get a 0.25% next week. We did get the EU actually cutting another 0.25%, and also the sort of interbank, banks borrowing from the central bank and banks lending to each other and all that, come down quite a bit. So sort of public rate dropped 0.25%, but those rates dropped 0.6%. I don't think the Europeans ever really wanted to raise in the first place, so yeah, no surprise that's coming down. And then US jobless numbers sort of pretty much all in line, not a lot of change there. And yeah, that's pretty much all the news. So portfolio wise, I've made very little change. The cash from Rio Tinto is still sitting there, potentially getting withdrawn to put into Interactive Brokers, but I've not really done a huge amount there either. And yeah, TSMC, sort of Broadcom, as I say, semiconductor stuff looking fairly strong in the last week. Stellantis sort of still lagging down quite a bit, moving towards break even really for share price alone. Obviously, a huge amount of dividends on top of that makes that still quite green. And yeah, the rest sort of languishing a little bit. Glencore sort of well under £4 now. I was kind of thinking about selling that when it was in the £4, and things have sort of come down a bit while copper has been going up, so it doesn't look quite as bad now, but yeah, still potentially thinking of selling. Looking on the ISA side, so you can see I had a little reorder of this by holding value, and Coeur Mining is now my biggest holding across the portfolio. I've made no adjustments at all. This is just market moves. But yeah, Clean Spark sort of coming down below $10 and sort of staying there for quite a bit. Did go below $8. And Coeur Mining just smashing it with gold and particularly silver. I mean, they only mine 13 million, sort of depending on the year, ounces of silver. But yeah, people seem to treat them as sort of the big silver play. So they really do move when silver moves, and it's £40,000 now. So I am sort of considering maybe trimming a little of this in the ISA and moving into Fresnillo. Obviously, they still have the issue that they're largely in Mexico, and Mexico don't really like mining at the moment. But yeah, 50 million. Well, I think Fresnillo do guiding for sort of over 55 million ounces of silver, and they're sort of not even twice the market cap of Coeur Mining, and they do double the gold anyway, or a little less than double the gold. So yeah, double the gold and 5 times the silver for less than double the market cap. It does look rather promising, with sort of the only drawback being that it's Mexico rather than sort of in sort of largely North America, and they're on the London Stock Exchange, which no one likes. But yeah, Clean Spark sort of doing okay. Equinox Gold rising up, sort of $6.30. That's looking pretty good. And yeah, Riot sort of coming up a little with this past move upwards in crypto. And the REITs sort of looking reasonably strong. Sort of had been considering, as I say, maybe selling these off with them sort of rising up on rate cut expectations. You know, sort of £4,300 between the two of them now. They were sort of below 4,000 for the two not so long ago, and yeah, potentially putting these into something like Hive Digital if there's a little bit more of a drop back towards the sort of 250s on Hive, but we'll have to see. The Interactive Brokers ISA hasn't really sort of moved a huge amount. Pan American back up to 2120. KGHM not doing too bad. They should do really well off the silver move. And yeah, the invest account, obviously the option side, has sort of ballooned in the last week. Did drop pretty hard the previous week, of course. But I haven't sort of bought a lot. There's still 4,500 sitting in cash. I did somehow scoop up 5 contracts of Equinox before their sort of big move, and yeah, it's now sort of the largest position in there again. And Coeur Mining sort of rising up as well. That's one that I did sort of buy early on and just leave sitting there. So it's at 570%. Pretty nice. And then yeah, still have sort of the crypto side in the red, Himax in the red as well. Core Scientific sort of doing really well. That was just bought for 10 contracts at $10 strike. So that's sort of people expecting a lot more from them now with the AI side. So yeah, Fortuna still sort of in the red, but has risen a fair bit this past week. So yeah, not really looking to sort of deploy any cash at these levels. Kind of expecting maybe a bit of a pullback in crypto at some point. It's sort of risen up a hell of a lot, and I may just pop the last bit of that cash into sort of a combination of Riot and Hive again. Have to accept maybe I haven't caught the bottom. Didn't realise this was potentially the bottom, but we'll have to see where it goes. So yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys are buying anything, if you're enjoying the gold and silver rally, or if you're just in sort of the big tech. and like and subscribe. See you soon.